Hello, YouTube. I am Vince White. I am an employment attorney, and usually on this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. But that's not what we're doing today. No. Today we are answering for our crimes. Recently, I made some comments, some hot takes about legal aid and legal aid when they take on employment litigation matters. And I may have called them a malpractice factory. And I have friends who work for legal aid, and they were not greatly thrilled with me. So I want to specify and qualify my statements as a bit of a mea culpa. But the fact of the matter is, I'm going to stand by the core premise. So, okay, here's what we're doing. First and foremost, let me be clear. Does legal aid help people? Yes. Absolutely. Public defenders sometimes help people. They are better than having no representation at all. So that is a form of help. When they start to get into fields they don't understand, I no longer think they are necessarily a help. They are as bad or worse than a layperson. Worse than a layperson because they're very overworked. So if they get into a field they don't know, like say employment discrimination or employment sexual harassment, they might actually be worse than an unrepresented pro se individual, because the pro se individual is going to spend time on their case. Someone working for legal aid, or, and I'm not specifying, like, there's a bunch of different names: legal aid, Brooklyn Defenders, all these organizations. When I say these names, I mean generally legal aid organizations across New York and really across the country. When they take an employment discrimination or an employment sexual harassment case, their caseloads are so heavy, their days are so full, that they probably do not have the time to do the things required to correctly move that case forward. Now, a pro se individual certainly will lack the knowledge and experience and litigation acumen of a legal aid worker, but they will have time to spend on their case. Further, not all legal aid is created equal. There's really like two groups in legal aid. You have children from elite universities who've come to not get a real job, and they come to get their Ivy League degree tied to some feel-good fake work. And those people with their Ivy League degree spend time not working, not helping people, pushing people to settle their cases so they work even less. And most of those individuals gauge in about a 3-year reign of terror in which they ruin lives. Is that always true? No. Clearly, there's someone somewhere along the line with a Harvard degree who went to work for some legal aid organization and help people, really, truly. I think that's I think there's a superhero movie about that. The Daredevil? Isn't that like, it was so rare, so unlikely they made a movie about it. It's a comic book, right? But most of those people are actively engaged in reigns of terror, harming as many human beings as they can, talking too loud in hallways, telling people to settle cases for things they objectively can prove they didn't do. Like, this is common. These are bad people. These are bad people doing bad things. They're so bad, there should be consequences for them, in my opinion. Now, there's also very, very good people who work at legal aid. And I'm going to link an article down below for a gentleman who I do not know. Read this article about him. Seems like a swell guy. He's got himself a podcast. I'm going to link the podcast too. I've never listened to it. I just think this guy sounds like he's really trying hard to help people. And, maybe if we can help his podcast get a few views, maybe he can, have a little more money and he can spend a little more time helping people, and that'd be nice for everybody. So back to the issue of employment litigation with legal aid. They're not trained in employment litigation. It's not what they do. They don't run a high volume of those cases, and it is always mystifying to me when they take them what they think they're going to do. But now, I have recently seen someone working for legal aid sign up an employment litigation with a contingency percentage. I have so many questions. Generally, it is my understanding that legal aid does not get paid by their clients. If this retainer agreement is what I read it to be, what we have is someone working for legal aid signing a client to a retainer to do a field of law that this individual has no knowledge of, while carrying a heavy caseload and not capable of giving sufficient time to the employment litigation, but getting a contingent percentage from the plaintiff. I have so many questions. Now, I've done videos before about kind of the issues in terms of working for New York City as an attorney, and those issues largely extend to legal aid as well. If you are not independently wealthy, if you do not have other streams of income, generally speaking, it is very, very difficult to view a job as legal aid as a job in New York City. This is because, and as noted in the article below, which was a great article, that gentleman made about $85,000 a year. He, however, was sitting on $400,000 of student loan debt. And of course, he's living within New York City, so he is paying New York State taxes on top of federal taxes. So his $85,000 is, I think, he's in one of the two most heavily taxed situations in the nation, possibly the highest tax situation in the nation. So his take home isn't great, even though it's, tax brackets and accounting for all of that. So he's barely surviving. In the article, you'll see he's also working Uber Eats. He's working another job. He's got 3 jobs to make ends meet, right? Legal aid is not a job in New York City. Legal aid is a hobby in New York City. You have to then have income from something else, right? It's something you do because you want to do legal aid, not because you want $85,000 from legal aid, right? That law degree, presumably that you obtained, generally will strap you with a great deal of debt. And of course, living in New York City, where it's in Manhattan, I think the average 1-bedroom apartment rent is $5,000 now. Like, if you do the math, rent, taxes, student loans, there's no money left, right? These people are spending more to keep this job than they're earning. Generally, for the Ivy League children, that's fine because mommy and daddy are paying, or the trust fund, right? But for the people who actually are trying to do legal aid to help folks, generally speaking, it's a work of passion. It is a work of charity. It is a Mother Teresa-esque practice of law, and they're overwhelmed. The gentleman in the article was carrying 106 cases, I believe. 106 cases. Now, employment law cases are more complex, to my mind, than the average criminal case. The criminal cases tend to have a very high clip of plea bargaining, right? So, maybe there's something I'm missing there in terms of why 106 cases would be okay for a criminal defense attorney. But to me, that sounds inappropriate. It sounds uncomfortable. It sounds like the wheels are about to come off that practice. And I say that knowing full well that he's going up against prosecutors, and I know a good number of New York City prosecutors. The one I can think of first and foremost would often meet me to watch football before he would go work night court. And that prosecutor would buy himself a pitcher of Guinness because he felt nobody could smell Guinness on him, and he would drink the pitcher like it was a glass until it was gone. And then he would go do night court, where he decided to set up people's lives. So So yes, I mean, I freely admit that, New York City is not fielding its best and brightest as prosecutors. Sorry, man. You know what you are, right? So legal aid, they get some room to maneuver. They get, sometimes a chance to do right and good. But, and frankly, prosecutors have the same issues legal aid has. They're not, it's not a job. They're losing money to work that job, right? So in New York City specifically. So my point is, when I criticize legal aid, I want to differentiate two things. The Ivy Leaguers are, generally speaking, monsters who harm people full time. Now, the feel-good people, like the person from the article, they're still overwhelmed. They're just doing their best. And generally, if you're overwhelmed and you're doing your best, I'm going to say, stick to what you know. Stick to your area of expertise. Because you will have developed coping mechanisms and efficiencies in your realm of expertise that help you to get forward and actually keep helping people, right? Which I believe this gentleman has, right? In spite of the fact that he's working 3 jobs, I believe this gentleman is helping people. Seems like a swell guy. So I want to differentiate out those two groups, but I will say either of those groups, if they go outside their field and they take an employment case, I have concerns, and I view the chance that they will commit malpractice to be exceptionally high, approaching a 100% chance. Just my thought. I think you are better unrepresented than working with legal aid on an employment discrimination or sexual harassment case. That is my firmly held belief. I'm not saying that because I think all legal aid is bad. I'm not saying that because I think all legal aid is stupid. I'm saying that because I think all legal aid either doesn't give a shit or is overwhelmed. That may not be a popular opinion, but I'm not really here to make friends. I'm here to kind of give people information that helps them to make informed decisions about their employment litigation, and it is what it is. If this was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below. If you think legal aid is incredible, if you think those Ivy Leaguers are there to help people, you should let me know in the comments down below. And if this was helpful, give me the subscribe. Helps me to help more people just like you. Remember, everybody works, except maybe the Ivy Leaguers. But not everybody wins.